But let's transition. Let's go down to South Beach. It was a beatdown that took place down in Miami Sunday afternoon as the Miami Dolphins beat the Denver Broncos 70-20. Yes, that is a real score. This is not college. This is the NFL. The Dolphins beat the Broncos 70-20. The Dolphins were the fourth team to score 70 points in an NFL game for the Dolphins, because I'm not even going to talk about the Broncos statistics because they were irrelevant. For the Broncos, Tua Tagovailoa went 23 of 26. He threw for 309 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. Tyreek Hill, 9 receptions, 157 receiving yards, 1 touchdown. I got more Dolphins stats. Trust me, you don't want to miss these stats I'm going to name here shortly. But take a listen to Denver Broncos head coach Sean Payton after the loss.
I know that you said it's embarrassing, but this is kind of an historic game. I mean, it's
I'm aware.
the third time the team has scored 70 points, over 7.
What's the question? What's the
How do
question?
you feel about it being
I just finished telling you.
historically embarrassing?
Next question.
That was a frustrated Denver Broncos head coach Sean Payton after his team had surrendered 70 points to the Miami Dolphins. And let's go over some of these numbers and this historic day in Miami. The Miami Dolphins scored 70 points. That's tied for the second most points in NFL history in the regular season. They had 726 total yards of offense. That's the second most in a single game in NFL history. And Devon Achane, Tyreek Hill, and Raheem Mostert all combined for 9 total touchdowns. And also, this is the Dolphins' place in history. These were all the first in NFL history for the Dolphins. It was the first time with 70 points and 700 yards. It was the first time a team had 10 offensive touchdowns, and the second time where a team had a player that had 300 passing yards and 300 rushing yards. It was a complete beatdown. And right now, through the first 3 weeks of the season, the NFL MVP is Tua Tagovailoa. So far for the season, Tua has 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 1,024 passing yards, completing 71% of his passes. Tua has been balling. He's been balling, playing at a high level. And when you think about Tua Tagovailoa, since he's been the quarterback of the Miami Dolphins, at one point, his head coach was Brian Flores. And I like Brian Flores. Got a lot of respect for Brian Flores. He is the current defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. He was, once upon a time, the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, their last coach, before they brought in Mike McDaniel. And while Brian Flores was the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, Tua heard rumors of the Miami Dolphins being interested in Aaron Rodgers, in Russell Wilson, in Deshaun Watson, in Tom Brady as well. And Tua Tagovailoa has been balling this year, and he balled last year as well in the games that he played in. He played in 13 games last year, and Tua was balling last year. Last year, 25 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 3,548 passing yards. So Tua was balling in 2022 as well. And it just makes you wonder and think about if Tua played in that playoff game, in that wild card game last year against Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, it could have been the Miami Dolphins who had beat the Buffalo Bills and advanced to the divisional round of the playoffs. Because with Tua last year, the Dolphins were 8-5. They were 8-5 in games in which Tua Tagovailoa started. And so far this season, he's been the NFL MVP in the first 3 weeks of the season. And this 70-point performance came in a game in which they didn't even have their number 2 receiver in Jalen Waddle. Waddle didn't even play in this game with a concussion. He was out. Because if Jalen Waddle plays in this game, they might have scored 90 or 100 points. Seriously. I'm pretty sure Jalen Waddle would have wanted to get his and score a few touchdowns on that depleted Broncos defense. So shout out to Tua. Through the first 3 weeks of the season, he has performed at a high level, and he is the current NFL MVP. I want to also give some credit to the Miami Dolphins head coach, Mike McDaniel, because Mike McDaniel has ran the football more this year, and I like it for the Miami Dolphins as an offense. Overall this year so far, offensively, the running game, they are averaging 188 yards per game on the ground with Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane. So shout out to Mike McDaniel for having an effective running game. Because if you have an effective running game, this Miami Dolphins offense becomes virtually unstoppable. They are unstoppable because if you bring the safety down in the box, you're going to get beat over the top because the Dolphins have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So if they can continue to run the football the way that they're running the football, it makes them even tougher to beat. Makes them even tougher. So far this year, they are ranked first in the NFL in rushing yards per game with that 188 yards per game. It has impressed me. So we got to give the Miami Dolphins credit. Give that Dolphins offensive line a ton of credit. They deserve it. Every one of their offensive linemen deserve it. Center Connor Williams, left guard Isaiah Wynn, left tackle Taron Armstead, right guard Robert Hunt, right tackle Austin Jackson. Give that Miami Dolphins offensive line credit. This performance against the Denver Broncos was outstanding. I mean, I'm watching because this was in the 1 o'clock window, and obviously I'm watching Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers try to overcome a 17-point deficit to the New Orleans Saints. And I look on my phone and I go to the score app and I see 70-20, and I'm in a group text with a few of my cousins who talk NFL, and I had to send them the message to them, and I said, is this real? 70-20 is a college football score. You don't see a team in the NFL score 70 points. That's video game stuff. So shout out to the Miami Dolphins, and I got to say it, right now, the Miami Dolphins and the San Francisco 49ers, they look like they are on a collision course to meet in Las Vegas for the Super Bowl this year. The Dolphins and the 49ers have been the two best teams so far in the NFL, in my opinion. I know the Eagles are 3-0, but I feel like the 49ers are better than the Eagles right now. And the Eagles were my Super Bowl pick out of the NFC. But I have to roll with the 49ers right now. They're better than the Eagles at the moment. And the Dolphins are the best team right now in the AFC. Now, let's switch to the Denver Broncos. They are led by defensive coordinator Vance Joseph. The defense for the Denver Broncos and Vance Joseph and Sean Payton, they should be ashamed to show their faces in the city of Denver this week. They should be ashamed. To give up 70 points, they were pathetic Sunday afternoon in Miami. And let's look at that Denver Broncos defense as a whole and overall. So far in these first 3 weeks of the season, they have regressed. In the last 2 weeks, going up against Sam Howell and Tua Tagovailoa, the Broncos defense has given up 105 points. Now, Sam Howell, he's not an elite quarterback. And Tua, he's proving that he could be an elite quarterback, but Tua is not elite yet. He's having a great season so far, but I wouldn't consider Tua elite quite yet. And in these last 2 weeks of the season, the Broncos defense has made Sam Howell and Tua Tagovailoa look like they are Hall of Fame quarterbacks. And Tua may make the Hall of Fame. I don't know. Sam Howell, his career is young. We don't know how good Howell is going to be. But for them in the last 2 weeks to give up 105 points, they have been awful. And I'm starting to wonder, when I look at this Denver Broncos football team, I'm starting to wonder if they have already quit on Sean Payton. I'm wondering because remember earlier in the offseason, Sean Payton had all these comments about Nathaniel Hackett and how Nathaniel Hackett was the reason why the Broncos struggled the way that they did last year. And I'm looking at Sean Payton now because you had all those things to say about Nathaniel Hackett. I bet Sean Payton wishes he could take those comments back that he had on Nathaniel Hackett because his defense just gave up 70 points to the Miami Dolphins. 70 points. And this game, you can't blame this game on Russell Wilson. You can say whatever the hell you want about Russell Wilson and his performance in the 2022 season and even in the first 2 weeks. He did okay, especially in the first half of those games. But in this game, you can't blame Russell Wilson. This performance goes on the head coach and Sean Payton. And he's lucky Mike McDaniel didn't kick that field goal and tie the all-time record for points scored in a game. Sean Payton has been officially humbled. We got to call it like it is. He had a lot to say about Nathaniel Hackett during the offseason and questioned him as a head coach and said that he was the reason why the Denver Broncos struggled last year and basically wrote a check that he so far has not been able to cash himself. He's doing just as bad as Nathaniel Hackett, if not worse. Nathaniel Hackett didn't give up 70 points in an NFL game. That did not happen. That as a matter of fact, under Nathaniel Hackett, that Broncos defense was better last year. They were better last year under Nathaniel Hackett. And this is a team defensively. They got Kareem Jackson in the secondary. They got Justin Simmons as well. Pat Surtain. At linebacker, you got Alex Singleton. Okay, up front, DJ Jones, Zach Allen. So a legitimate question has to be asked now. Have the Denver Broncos, only 3 games into the season, have they given up on Sean Payton? Have they given up on him already and just don't even want to hear things that he has to say? And again, if these guys continue to lose games, at some point they're going to check out on Sean Payton if they haven't already done it. And it's not looking good for the Denver Broncos. You're in the AFC West. We already know the Chargers and the Chiefs are better than the Broncos. They're 0-3. They got the Bears this week. Somebody has to win that game. Bears, Broncos in week 4. Somebody, Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, will win that game. But you know what? It might end in a tie. That Broncos-Bears game might end in a tie in week 4. Mark my words. That's how pathetic the Bears and the Broncos have been so far this season. But this loss is not on Russell Wilson. This loss is on the head coach and Sean Payton.